If there is one book that encapsulates the Gen X experience in the 1990s, it's Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus by John Gray. But does it hold up today? I'm Candice Ridardi. This is Gratitude Geek, and I have pneumonia. So I've got my tea with honey. I'm on 2 kinds of antibiotics and steroids. So I'm going to do my best to have this conversation today about natural rhythms between men and women with feminine leadership coach Renae Fieck. Welcome, Renae.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. I remember that book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. I'll be honest, I don't think I ever read it. I think like it circled around in the world at my time, but I don't remember actually ever reading it. So who
Well,
knows? Did you read it?
probably.
Okay.
I mean, it has been 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure I read it, but I know I've joked about it a lot. So
Yeah.
tell us your story. What would you like the audience to know about you?
Totally. So my name's Renae. My background is a pediatric occupational therapist. So I've spent the last, 10 plus years working with babies and in the NICU and pediatrics and all those types of things. And about 10 years ago, I was brand new to working at the Children's Hospital. It was like what I thought was going to be my dream job. I'd always wanted to work at the Children's Hospital. I found out that I was pregnant with my third baby and found out that my husband had a brain tumor all in the same month and sent us on this like whirlwind of going through brain surgery and then seizures and navigating that. And then he couldn't drive. So I was driving him back and forth to work and driving the kids back and forth to daycare and school. And then I was going to work. And then I was the only one that could drive to go to the grocery store or any of those types of things. And about a year into it, kind of reached this breaking point of I can't do this. Like, I can't carry all of this. And I can't keep waiting and living for one day when things get easier, or one day when we have more money in the bank, or one day when the kids are all in school. It was, the reality of when you're faced with a life or death thing that we went through, that we are never guaranteed tomorrow. So if I'm in this survival mode every single day, waiting for someday for things to get easier, what if it never actually gets easier? And what if that day never comes? And so that was what really launched me into wanting to create my own business and wanting to create more time freedom and financial freedom and to be able to be home with my kids and raise my kids instead of just being work all the time. And so I dove into network marketing and started in that sphere, and same thing. A year or so later into it, I remember being at the hospital with my pump and my lunch. I was like eating my lunch and pumping and trying to message and post on social media and trying to get clients and all of the things. And again, was like, I can't keep doing this. Like, I can't, I've just traded one hustle for a totally different hustle in the name of trying to create more freedom. And I reached out to my mentor and she said, if you want more, like, business is all just numbers. So you just have to do more. Like, if you want more money and more clients, whatever, it's just like, you just have to do more. And at the time, my knuckles were bleeding. I was stretched at my capacity in every which way. I was getting up early, going to bed late, like asking my husband to put the kids to bed so that I could stay up working. And there was no more to give. And so I kind of went down the road of like, there's two options. One, entrepreneurship is just not for me. Maybe there is some magic thing that other people out there in the world have that makes them successful, and I just don't have it. And I'm going to give up now. Or there's something I am missing that I need to figure out what it is. And so I went down this whole road of, researching neuro habits, read the books, The Atomic Habits and Miracle Morning, and, high performance habits and all of these things, trying to find that thing that was going to be able to make me be able to get more in the limited amount of time that I had. And in that process, that journey is when I really discovered that men and women are so different, like not necessarily from Mars and Venus, but that our brain chemistry is so different and our hormones are different. And that impacts us, how we show up every single day. And it impacts our habits, it impacts our routines, it impacts how creative we feel and how we focus and how much energy we have. And once I started integrating it into my own life, the first thing I think I'll say is like gave me so much permission. Permission to set things down, permission to say no, permission to adjust in ways that I needed. And then also started being able to get actually more done in less time because I wasn't fighting where my body was naturally at. So when I started sharing it with friends and clients and things at the time, they were like, dude, women need to know about this. Like, start talking about this. So for the last, I don't even know at this point, like 7 years, that's really what I've been focusing in on is helping women learn how our bodies are just different. And now it's a beautiful thing that when we tap into that and we can really shape the way we live our lives, how we build our businesses, how we communicate, all of that from a very body based perspective.
I think that Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus was more of a spiritual book. And
Mm,
what you're talking about is about physiology.
yeah.
And in the last 30 years, we have learned so much about how our bodies work. They're pretty freaking amazing. But
Hmm.
I'm not a doctor and I'm not going to talk about it. So I would love to dig into this concept of the natural rhythms of men versus women because I'm a woman. I know it's true. And for I'm 56 years old, so I am the last generation probably that was told to do things to make men feel more comfortable. Like
Mm,
we don't tell women that anymore. Well, there might be some people who tell women that,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
we were always trying to lessen ourselves, diminish ourselves so that men felt more comfortable.
Hmm.
And that isn't the way that you get things done. The way that you get things done is that you use your natural rhythms
Hmm.
to get the work done when you can get it done. Like my natural rhythm is when I was building the first of its kind a custom furniture business online,
Hmm.
I was doing it at 2 o'clock in the morning because
Mm,
that's when I could naturally get it done. That was my natural rhythm.
yeah.
But that might not be what you're talking about.
Well, well, that is one rhythm, right? So our circadian rhythm, we all have a little bit different of how our circadian rhythm functions. Majority of people, your circadian rhythm would follow what the sun and the moon are doing during the day. So if we were to get rid of artificial lighting and we were to get rid of TVs and all of that, chances are most of us would wake when around the time that the sun woke up, or not the sun woke up, the sun came up, and that we would go to bed around the time that it got dark because if we didn't have artificial lighting, that would be the window of time that we were able to use. And so generally most people will follow a very similar rhythm, but that awake time and nighttime like drastically does impact us. Even within that circadian rhythm of the day, we generally have, like you talked about, you have a spike of energy at a certain point in the day, and we all have that. So our energies go up and down and up and down and up and down, and it's this little rhythm about every 90 minutes throughout the day. I noticed that was one of the rhythms that I found very quickly was that, before I would go to work all day, I'd come home and I would be working on my business late at night, and I would be sitting on the couch doing it with my laptop on my lap, and I'd be watching some TV, and it would take me hours and I'd get very little done. And I'd wake up the next morning and I'd do it again and I would go over and over and over again. And it wasn't until I realized like my peak work time is actually between like 9 and 11 in the morning. And if I focused in on getting my work done in that 9 to 11 window, I actually got so much more done than if I came home and sat with my computer from 6 o'clock until 11 o'clock at night. So just shifting like the time of the day and capitalizing on when your rhythms are best is fantastic. So that is one rhythm. The one that I work with a lot with women is understanding our like hormone rhythm. So men function with testosterone, and testosterone has kind of similar to that circadian rhythm. It's like this up and down sort of rhythm. and it's consistent, and they have that every single day. So when they wake up in the morning, they have a fresh dose of testosterone, and then when they go to bed at night, they have kind of depleted their testosterone. They wake up the next morning, they've got a fresh dose. So when we looked at a lot of the books that we've used and we've modeled after of having habits and routines that are consistent every single day, that works really well for men. But when we look at women and we look at how their hormones work, we typically have estrogen in the front half of our menstrual cycle and progesterone in the second half of that cycle. And estrogen and progesterone, they feel drastically different in how we show up. So estrogen tends to have a little bit more of the testosterone feel of get up and go, get things done, feel confident, feel ready, feel beautiful, feel great. Like I can do this. And then progesterone kicks in and we're like, this sucks. I'm going to burn it all down. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know why I did that. I don't want to talk to anybody. Please don't make me do that. Getting triggered, maybe overwhelmed, and all of those things. And most women just kind of see it as like a PMS week. It's their moody week. I've had a lot of clients say, "Oh, I've got 2 good weeks of the month, and then the other 2 weeks, my body just fails me and it derails me from any of my goals and plans." And I think that that's because, again, we've been modeled this is how testosterone works. This is how we should all be working, instead of really understanding that women have this monthly rhythm and that it impacts how we think and how we focus and how we create and how different we are, and that each of them have like superpowers. Like each one of those different phases has something that's really meant for us. And men go through the same similar type of cycle. It's just within the day. So if you have a male partner and they come home from work and they sit on the toilet for an hour and you're like, I know it does not take you an hour to sit on to go to the bathroom. It's like that's their downtime, their moment of recharge and kind of picking back up a little bit. So they have it too. It's just reflected very differently. And so, it's not men are from Mars or women are from Venus. It's like, hey, men have a daily rhythm, women have a monthly rhythm. And that shapes and changes everything we do. And even beyond the menstrual cycle, right? Even if you don't have a menstrual cycle anymore, women still tend to follow that same rhythm of the moon. So, we have these two amazing, I don't even know if they're both planets, the sun and the moon. Are they both planets? They're stars, whatever thing that they are, whatever they represent.
The sun is a star, the moon is a moon
Okay, there we go.
or a
But like,
satellite, a satellite. So yeah, I was
yeah,
going to ask you about menopause, and
yeah,
I also so not every woman has a 28-day cycle. I mean,
yeah.
when I was of childbearing age, I had a period once a year. But that
Hmm.
didn't mean I had a yearly cycle. It just meant that I had a period once a year. But then you get into menopause, and also, so I was when you were explaining the difference between estrogen and progesterone, I was laughing because I have estrogen receptive breast cancer, which means
Mm-hmm.
they're suppressing my estrogen.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I understand that estrogen is the creative and progesterone is more the grumpy, it explains a lot.
You're like, I get that.
I'm like, oh, that explains everything.
Yeah. You're like, I know what that feels like.
Yeah. Okay. The pneumonia
Yeah,
is kicking in.
that's
All
okay.
right. So talk to me about what happens when your cycle doesn't match, well, talk about
Yeah,
menopause. The women on this show, they want to know about menopause. So talk about
totally,
menopause.
totally. Well, yeah, so, like, even just to go to your like, you said, like, your cycle was a year at a time, or your period came once a year. I really do think that even in what we talked about in the beginning of like women being told to kind of match and do what men had to do, I think a lot of that raises this level of cortisol, right? Your body is having these little micro stressors all the time because it's not functioning in the way it was supposed to. And so when we have our cortisol levels go up and things, it says, oh, it's not safe to make a baby. Let's shut off all of those hormones and let's turn that system offline so that we don't bring a baby into the world right now because we're not safe. And so I think that there is like this way of looking at, like, sometimes it's the environment that we're in and the stimuli that we have and the habits that we have that are directly impacting how the cycle shows up. And so that also makes a huge difference. I've seen women the vastly irregular cycles, and I'll raise my hand, I was one too, that all disappeared and got super regular once they started actually trying to tap into and leaning into where their cycle's at and really supporting it, like giving themselves adequate rest, giving themselves adequate time to go hard, giving them time to actually explore and have fun and create and all those things, which a lot of us aren't doing, right? Whether it's menopause or non-menopause, a lot of women don't give themselves permission to just have fun, like to play, to enjoy life. And those pieces are so critical to who we are as women and in how we create things in the world. Like, I really do believe women are based in this place of we create from pleasure and joy than we do from pressure.
Mm,
Men can create from pressure and deadlines and getting things done, and women can too. I'm not going to say we can't, but our best work always comes from when we feel so freaking good. And
mhm,
so I think that that's a big part of that. Now, looking at menopause in particular, your hormones are very different. It's not the same that as when you were cycling. But when we look at just cycles in general and we look at rhythms in general, like we have them, they exist in the world everywhere. We have seasons. So we have the seasons of the spring, summer, winter, fall. Those directly correlate to how the menstrual cycle functions. We oftentimes see it in the stock market where there's, years of cycling. We see it in government and like who's elected and things like that. There's always these rhythms that exist. And so when we look at that and we look at the moon and the sun and the seasons and all these things, like when we see that the whole universe that we are wrapped up in revolves around a cycle, why would we think that moving into menopause makes us devoid of having some sort of a cycle or some sort of a rhythm? And so it may look very different. It may not be, the same 4-week cycle phase that we see with menstrual cycle, that the hormones are directly impacting it. But I've worked with a lot of women who have, as they've entered into menopause, started to use the moon as that guide of creating that balance and creating that rhythm in their life, and have seen drastic changes as well, like seeing those impacts and seeing that like their body just breathes a sigh of relief of like, oh, we were meant to do this. Like we were meant to go into this phase. And even if we look at, like, again, this idea of cycles, if we look across the lifespan of a woman, there are those different seasons within that same cycle across the lifespan. So when we look at the cycle of a month, like a monthly cycle, it's like women, becoming, like having a rest period and then becoming fertile and then moving, or like production, and then moving into this fertility space, and then moving into a reflection, and then moving into a recharge. We see that over the course of time, right? We have children that move through puberty and then they become fertile, and then they move into a phase of kind of a little bit of a turmoil in perimenopause, and then they move back into this like rest season when they're able to explore and do things different. Like I feel like entering in that phase of like, I don't care what anybody else thinks about what I do or how I do it. I'm just going to have fun and I'm going to enjoy the rest of my life. And I think when we look at it from that way of we're all just moving through some sort of a cycle or some sort of a rhythm, and when we see it from that perspective and we lean into it, it gives us so much more grace. We start to have more compassion on when we're in a certain season. I was talking to a client this morning and she was talking about her friend. They went on this trip together. And my client, she's been doing a lot of work and she's feeling like she's in this like expansion season. She's feeling so big and magnetic and full of energy, and her friend was not. Her friend is going through grief and struggling and having a hard time and processing a lot of these things. And they were together on this trip, and her friend was so frustrated. She's like, you're just in this expansion magnetic energy, and all these people are being drawn to you, and you're having such a great time, and I am not. And I think that it was beautiful to hear her. She was able to reflect back to her, like, hey, you're just in a winter. That's okay. Like, you don't need to be in a spring season right now. You don't need to be in expansion season right now. The winter is okay too. And I think even just that acknowledgement as we look at the way things move in our world, like most people try to hustle through a winter season. We try to get through it as fast as possible because the world has said spring, growth, big production is the norm. Like that's where we need to be all of the time. but we don't. Like sometimes there are seasons of dormancy, and sometimes there are seasons of reflection and stillness and pause. And I think as a whole, our society has vastly underrated those seasons.
So I'm really curious. What
Mhm.
do you do as a feminine leadership coach?
Mm. So I would say, like, ultimately, my deepest work is like helping women kind of come back to themselves, come back into their bodies, like learning to trust themselves, learning to lead from that. So oftentimes, a lot of the work I do is helping women kind of own their power, like who they are as a woman, and knowing that it is very different than anybody else around them, knowing that it's nothing about who they somebody else said they should be or who they need to be, but it's like who they know internally that they are. And it's when we get into that place that we actually lead our lives. That is the place of us really getting into, I am a conscious decision maker of my life, and I'm guiding my life, and I lead my life rather than just letting things come at them and letting them conform to what they think they should be doing or how they should be doing it. So if I were to put it in that, it's like permissioning women really to step into their power and really step into who they are, and being totally okay with doing that, and then how they show up in their life.
I worked in a 99% male industry, and I was a really good salesperson. And
Mhm.
I think it's because I did embrace my femininity when I was
Mhm.
selling. I
Mhm.
like I like and it, but not in a,
What do you feel like that looked like for you?
I'm not going to say flirtatious, but
Okay.
that's probably the way it came off. But just being kind,
Mhm.
smiling, laughing, having a good time, making jokes, those
Mhm.
kinds of things when men do it, it's crass and crude. And when women do it, it's playful,
Mhm.
right? Women can
Mhm.
joke in a playful way without it being crude. Whereas men make a lot of sexualized jokes and make a lot
Mhm.
of sexualized comments. And I just think I was able to harness who I was as a woman to work in a male dominated
Mhm.
industry.
Mhm.
And I did it well.
Yeah. Oh, and I think that even just to acknowledge that there's a lot of women that have succeeded doing it a very masculine way. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of women that still very much function in masculine ways. And I think we even, as we move throughout the cycle and we move through different seasons of our life, there are times of our lives we probably do have to perform a little bit more masculine. And that's okay too. Like, I don't think that we see a lot in the virtual world right now, this like soft girl era of women just wanting to get back to the kitchen and bake bread. It's like they're women that went so hyper masculine of, I
That's
got to get into the
performative
career.
though.
I know.
All of that is performative. I
But
don't
I think it goes both ways. I think there's women who like went really hardcore wanting rights, they wanted career, they wanted to be in the office, they wanted whatever. And now there's a lot of women that are saying, "Okay, we did that. Now we want to go back this way." And I think that what most of us really want is the balance between the two. And that's what most of us are existing in, is like, I'm going to own who I am as a woman and allow myself to have ambition and go after dreams and careers. And yet I'm going to do it in a way that feels really good to me and my body and like who I am. And I think that's the where we're riding right now, is like women kind of figuring out what that really looks like for them. What is their own unique, because we're all going to have our own unique kind of blueprint of that, of how I want to show up. Like, I am just inherently a little bit more ambitious and go getter, and I'm a Aries, human design generator. I'm somebody who's going to go. Like, I get an idea, I'm going to execute it, and I'm going to go hard on it. I'm going to be full of fire for it. And then I'm going to actually take a rest and like totally like step away from it, allow myself to go on vacation, allow myself to check out. And that's how I have really created that rhythm for me of, I can balance both of those two things in my own unique way. And I think each woman is their own unique balance of that. And also, figuring out like what is it when I strip away the labels of what people have told me I need to do or how I need to do it? Like, what is it that I really want to show up as and how I want to do? And I think that's the ultimate piece. And it's really hard to do because we've grown up with so many cultural norms, family norms, society norms, like so many things that
Yeah.
it's hard to know what that really is, like what those really like deep, 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 deep down things are. And
Yeah,
I think that's
and the culture really does play into it.
100%.
My grandmother, Korean, old school Korean, and she really preached, make yourself smaller. I mean, her whole
Mhm.
message to us as girls was make yourself smaller.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, it wasn't a good message.
Yeah.
When you were talking earlier in your introduction about your husband and when he was going through his illness, something really similar happened with my husband and I. I have metastatic breast cancer, so I will be in treatment for the rest of my life. So it's been going on for 13 years now. And when I was first diagnosed, it was really, really hard for me to stop getting up before my daughter and making sure she had breakfast and getting her off to school. And my husband was like, "You have got to let her do that herself. You've got to sleep." And it was so hard for me to release that, even though I felt like crap.
Mhm.
And then we had to do a little role reversal. I was the person who paid the bills, and I was the person who did the grocery shopping and the cooking, and he had to take on those roles because I couldn't.
Yeah.
And we sort of never really swapped back.
How nice.
He still does the groceries, and which irritates me because I want to do them. So we had this role reversal that was forced on us, and it just created a different rhythm. I think we got into a different cycle, a different rhythm, which is okay.
There are like I said, there's seasons and there's cycles and, like, things that are gonna evolve. Like, we are evolving humans, and I think even to go back to your comment about, like, what made you successful in the sales space that you were in, what it was your humanity. It was your humanity. And I think that when we look at humans, like, humans are messy, humans make mistakes, humans fail, humans, we have these ups and downs. We have relationships that are tense, we have relationships that are passionate, we have all of these dichotomies. I think when we look at, there's the law of polarity in our world, right? That in order for us to really experience love and joy and gratitude, we also have to be able to experience sadness and grief and those winter sorts of emotions. And otherwise, it would all just kind of be dull. And so I think when what you're kind of talking about too is like these changes that happen in our cycles. And I think, you look at the universe, like the universe, it's like evolution, right? We're constantly evolving, we're constantly changing, we're adapting to what works and what needs happen. And if that season for you now actually works better, maybe that's the way it was always meant to be. And maybe it'll change back again. Who knows, Or maybe this is that season for you to receive. And for that season before, you were such a giver and giver and giver, giver, which tends to be women's default. We tend to give a lot, I think, out of cultural conditioning, when in reality, women are receivers. Like, our natural gifting is magnetism, it's receiving, it's, like, we look at, I always bring it back to biology, but you look at, like, a man gives his sperm to a woman and she receives that, births, creates life, and then births that baby out into the world. All she had to do was receive, and then everything else was on autopilot. Like, we're not sitting there thinking, grow a pair of ears, grow a pair of eyes today. It's just, it naturally happens. And then we birth life out into the world. And so if we look at it like that is our inherent biological makeup, if you want to say. And we have, as women, been conditioned into, we've got to be the givers, we got to be the doers, we got to ones that are, making the breakfast and putting all the things around. And instead, maybe this is a season for you of like practicing that receiving energy. And I think in order for there to be a receiver, there has to be a giver. And so there has to be a giver in order to be a receiver. The relationship goes in hand. And sometimes that does flip, that does change. I know there are seasons when my husband is having a tougher time and I am the one providing and giving and supporting. And there are seasons when it's the opposite and he's the one that's giving and supporting and receiving. And I think that's what makes up this beautiful balance of the energies that exist in our world.
I think the law of polarity was the right call out on that.
Yeah.
Um, I always explain my relationship with my husband like this. We fill
Mhm.
each other's gaps.
Yeah.
But magnets have
Repel.
they repel
Mhm.
and they attract depending on how they are how you line them up.
Yeah.
But I mean, they will sometimes do this, they'll sometimes do
Uh-huh.
this, there but the polarity keeps them at the right distance.
Mhm.
So you have to honor the polarity that is going on at that time. And if
Mhm.
your gaps are filled with space, it's okay. And if your gaps are filled with overlaps, it's okay too. You just have
Mhm.
to honor what is happening right now, which is why I've been married for 28 years because I honor the
Congrats.
gaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you
Yeah.
if anybody wants to ask me what the secret to a happy marriage is that you're not always happy and you just honor that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So, I want to address that there aren't just men and women in the world. There are people who are born with both genitals. There are people who are born with, you can't even tell. This cat right here. I don't know if you can
Mhm.
see her. She gave birth to kittens in October,
Mhm.
and one of them we couldn't tell if it was a male or a female for about 6 weeks. Okay. So this happens. That's 1 out of 5 kittens, right? This happens in the world about the
Yes.
same amount of time that redheads happen. Okay. But that person who is born this way also
Mhm.
has a rhythm.
Mhm. 100%. And that's where I think if we were to like really strip this back, I think it has well, yes, like the framework that I use of like the menstrual cycle and things like that gives people it's really truly just a framework. Ultimately, at the end of the day, all of this is helping get people back to actually listening to what is true and right for them. And how can we actually listen internally versus just listening to all the noise that's out there in the world. So I've had people come to me and say like, "Oh, I have a really irregular cycle. Like, how do I actually track it?" And I've often said that actually gives you a strength into what you're actually doing. Like this whole conversation, everything that we've been doing and talking about rhythms and things is like, how do you get back to your inherent natural state, whatever that is for you? You know, your rhythm may be different, your energy may be different, how you see yourself in the world may be different, and so how do you honor that? Like, how do you get back to who you truly innately are and like trust in that fully? Like, that is the biggest thing. Like, how do you trust that, especially when the rest of the world is telling you not to do that, or when the rest of the world is telling you that that's wrong, or the rest of the world is telling I mean, in the space that I'm in, you wouldn't imagine how many people I get giving me nasty negative comments about women and listening to their bodies and like working in this way. And so I can imagine anybody else in any of those other spaces, the way you see yourself in your sexuality, the way your body autonomy is, like the way your body anatomy is, like any of those things, it can get really easy for us to listen to what the world is telling us. And I think that that is the greatest gift that I found with the menstrual cycle, and that what I've tried to impart and give to my clients is that it's only a stepping stone, it's only a tool, it's a resource for them to be able to say like, "Oh, how can I go in? How can I listen to this? Like, how can I listen to my body?" I've read a couple of books around bodies and things and autoimmune disorders and different things like pains and chronic things that exist in the world. And a lot of people do believe that a lot of it has to do with emotion and the processing of emotion and expressing desire and expressing emotions. And that if we as people got better about being really honest and really vulnerable with the people that are around us, and even more so with ourselves about what we really truly want and what we really truly feel, that we may actually see a decrease in some of those other diseases and different things that are existing in the world. And I think that there's some real value in that. Like while I agree that that's going to eliminate every disease in the world? No. But do I think that there is probably a lot of people with these like suppressed desires and suppressed emotions and express, identities of who they really truly are? I do think that there's some disease that does manifest within the body when we're in that dissonance, because it's like the cells, right? Like there's like tension, there's that dissonance, and when they're constantly rubbing and whereas when we actually say, no, this is who it truly is. It's like they rest, they calm, they come into alignment, they're in attunement. And I think there's some power in that too. So
So
yeah.
I'm just gonna share
Yeah.
because even though I am hyper conscious about self care because cancer.
Mhm.
So Monday, I've been coughing. I mean, I told you I had COVID. So I had
Mhm.
COVID and now it's pneumonia. So Monday, I'm in the hallway and I'm walking down the hallway and I cough and I had this feeling overcomes me, and I went, "Oh God," and my phone falls out of my hand, and I fall face forward.
Mm.
Something happened.
Yeah.
And instead of listening to my body and immediately saying, "I need to go to the doctor," I waited until Wednesday, and I finally got into the doctor on Thursday. So, I probably had pneumonia at that point, and I
Yeah.
didn't listen, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's really important when your body says, "Hey, Candace, you might need to stop right now," that you
Mhm.
listen. So,
Mhm.
that was a very huge clue
Mhm.
that I ignored for 3 days. It's a very
Mhm.
huge clue, but we also have these subtle clues. Right? These subtle clues that, you know, there's a reason why they tell you to fill yourself up every month, right? You know, once a month, give your boobs a squeeze, make sure that they're feeling good so that you can tell when something's changed. Touch yourself so you know when things are different than they were. Because our body is telling us things and we have to really listen and pay attention.
Mhm.
And, I'm so glad, Renee, that you are teaching women how to do that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because you're right, like, it's like with the phrase that they say, like, "The universe will send you a feather, and if you don't listen to the feather, then it sends you a rock, and if you don't listen to the rock, it's gonna send you a boulder or a bus," or whatever it might be, and I think that that is what happens for a lot of us, is that our bodies are constantly talking to us. They really, truly are, in the most subtle of ways. Like, I've learned that if I sit really still and get quiet, I'm like, oh, I can actually feel some like vibrating, or I can feel a little bit of tightening, or I can feel, you can, when you come really present with your body, you can feel things on such a small micro level that then you can intervene at that feather level rather than waiting until a point where it's like, oh my gosh, I cannot move my arm. Like my arm hurts so bad. I remember I went to acupuncture and PT and all this stuff with my arm for I was probably in it for like 9 months with my arm. And I was like, "Ah, if I had just actually listened when it started, like when I felt that little twinge in the beginning, it wouldn't have taken me a year of PT and acupuncture and all these things to recover from it," right? Same thing, I developed melanoma and there was a part of me that it was like in this major hustle, this major push, this major stress season, and I look back and I think, "Man, I wonder if I actually was listening to my body earlier. I may have actually, noticed the melanoma sooner, or I would have noticed, or I wouldn't have caused that dissonance in my body that even created a space for it to manifest, or whatever. I don't know, but I think that that is when we stop and we actually start listening. We're like, oh, our bodies are constantly talking to us, whether it's food, right? My food, I notice without a doubt. Last night, my daughter made this like s'mores thing where she like melted chocolate and marshmallows and then had uh, graham crackers and we did that and then somebody bought Oreos and I don't normally eat like that and I sat down and my stomach was like right and we don't notice all of the time that. We just notice, like, oh, this is just my state. This is my norm. But then when we go through these periods, maybe when like I cut out all sugar out of my diet, I was like, I didn't notice that I actually wasn't feeling good. I thought that I was functioning normally, but clearly when I cut out all sugar, I had 10 times the amount of energy and the focus and I felt great and amazing. When I start working out, it's like, I actually feel really good. I didn't know I didn't feel good before. And so you start to recognize like all of those little things do impact the way our body feels. And if we're listening to it and we keep following those bread clues of this makes me feel better, this makes me feel better, this makes me feel better, eventually we get to that place where like, I just feel really good and I feel like me. Like I feel like me. Yeah.
That is such good advice
Yeah.
because we know what we should do, and most of the
Mhm.
time we aren't listening to ourselves.
Mhm.
All right, tell us about your
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah. Well, my podcast is the Cycle Advantage podcast. So I talk all things about business, the body, how we can step into our feminine, and how that really impacts the way we show up every single day. I wrote my book, Cycle Sync Your Business. So if you're in that space of wanting to know more about the cycle and how it impacts your business, you can grab a free copy of that at just reneefieck.com/free book. Those are probably the best places to get started. And I love hanging out on Instagram. I love all the platforms, but Instagram's my favorite. So that would be a great place.
I am a Threads girl.
Yeah?
I love it's so funny because you can post all you want about your podcast and crickets, but then you post a picture of your cat and you get 3,000 likes. But
I've tried so hard with Threads, like, getting into it. I love it. I think it's a key for anything when I've done local stuff because it, like, pushes out to all the local people so much easier than any other so, like, the other day, I was like, "I'm hosting this, like, free breath work, blah, blah, blah," and I think it pushes out really quick that way. But I just haven't been able to get behind it otherwise.
I think
Yeah.
it's I just am done posting pictures.
Mm.
Like I can't get rid of Instagram because I have a content a creation agreement that I have to have Instagram to post content. But yeah, it's not my favorite platform. I don't like it. I don't like looking at it. I don't like playing with it. But Threads, man, I could be on Threads for an hour because there's stories, right? You get
Mhm.
involved in the story, and
Yeah.
people are all I don't know. It's like a soap opera sometimes. I don't know, but shame on me, but whatever. Okay. So you've told us about your podcast. You told us how
Yep.
to get a hold of you. All those links will be in the show notes. How do you weave gratitude into your business strategy?
Ooh, gratitude is actually probably my top one. So a year or 2 ago, I mean, we all hear it, right? Gratitude makes everything better and gratitude practice this and that. But it wasn't until probably 2 years ago I went on I'm tired of trying to always get better. Tired of trying to, grow my business and expand my business and remove limiting beliefs and like all this like personal development hype that I had been on for so long. And I thought, if nothing changes in my life and nothing changes in my business, like how can I become so content and just grateful for everything exactly where it's at? And I think that that was the gateway of so much change that needed to happen for me because I stopped pushing in this, like, I have to hustle and strive and get to that next level and whatever. It was like, no, how do I just actually be present? So since then, that gratitude practice has been something I do almost it's not I would say every day, but it's not every day. It's almost every day that I will start my day with that and go out and write things that I'm grateful for currently and like things that I'm grateful for that are manifesting in my life before they're even actually here. I just like spend space and gratitude for those things that are already on their way and just starting my day from that place. And when I don't do it, those are the days when I lose my shit throughout the day. Like it's like I'm frustrated, I'm overwhelmed, I'm tense, I'm on the go. And so it really has shaped and created such a shift in the rest of my life. And so if I were to say there's one thing you need to do to change your life, that would be the thing. Yeah.
This is the Gratitude Geek podcast, and I am the
Mhm.
Gratitude Geek, but I think I'm going to start calling it an appreciation practice instead of a
Mhm.
gratitude practice because appreciation also means growth. And
Mhm.
so when you're appreciating, you're growing.
Mhm.
So implementing an appreciation practice means that you're growing through gratitude.
Yeah.
Candace, you're a genius. Coin it, copyright it. All right, Renae, I really appreciate that you have carried this conversation. I
No
can't
worries.
tell you how many things. And you were gracious enough to reschedule when I couldn't talk because I sounded like a frog. So thank you. I think I canceled like 3 weeks of my life because of this. So I'm so grateful that you were here when I have come back from the dead. Things evolve, grow, change, appreciation practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Renae Fieck, this is your moment of gratitude. For whom or what are you most grateful?
Right now, I would say probably my husband. Like my husband has been such a rock and like he's been so stable. There's been so much transition and so much pivoting and letting go in this season. This last, I would say 5 months has been really challenging and he has been holding it together. And today he was sharing about like how work has been so awful for him. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like even though he's been going through his own stuff and like how awful it's been for him, he's been that rock for me. And I am so grateful.
Thanks for tuning in to Gratitude Geek, the podcast for Gen X women solopreneurs, weaving gratitude into your business strategy. You can continue the conversation about the cycles of women and men in our Gratitude Geek lab. Go to CandiceRicardi.com/lab and join our community. Our theme music is by Rev Brock and Solely. Thank you for putting up with me as I go through this whole pneumonia thing. I've been your host, Candice Rodarty. Stay groovy, my friends.
Stay groovy, my friends.